أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. Verse number 19. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وكذلك بعثناهم ليتساءلوا بينهم قال قائل منهم كم لبثتم قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم فابعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. So it was that we aroused them from sleep, so that they might question one another. One of them said, "How long have you stayed?" They said, "We have stayed a day, or part of a day." They said, "Your Lord knows best how long you have stayed. Send one of you to the city with this money, and let him observe which of them has the purest food, and bring you provisions from there. Let him be attentive and discreet, and let him not make anyone aware of you." Now, the verse is giving lots of details about when they were arose from their sleep and what happened afterwards. Now, this term وَكَذَلِكَ, and like that, كَذَلِكَ means like that, in this way, which is actually giving similarity to something which has been mentioned before. Now, كَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ, like this we arose them. Like what? Like what you saw from that miracle which we reported to you, that we put them to sleep, we sealed their ears, and anyone coming close to that cave would have been terrified from the scene. They were being turned. All these miracles that I explained for you. Now I want to explain another miracle for you, and that we made them to come back to wakefulness. In that way, in that manner that we showed all those things, now we are relating to you a new phase of the story, and which is arousing them from their sleep. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ. Ba'ath, of course, is to resurrect, to bring someone back to life, or to give sort of errand to someone. This is also ba'ath. This is what the bi'thah of the Prophet we call. It is arousing someone. Now, arousing someone to do something or for some purpose, this is the meaning of ba'ath. So, Yawm al-Qiyamah is Yawm al-Ba'ath, and giving appointment to the Prophet is bi'thah as well, because it is arousing someone to do something or for some purpose. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ. What was the purpose of that arousing them, giving back life to them? لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. Now, this may seem a bit strange. Just we gave them back their wakefulness so that they ask amongst each other. And what was the question? How long have we stayed? No, of course, this is not the purpose. Tasa'ul is to converse about something very important. This has been, of course, mentioned in the Quran in several other places. So I arose them so that they start a conversation amongst themselves, through which certain realities, certain truth would have become manifest. And this tasa'ul, as I said, mentioned in many other parts of the Quran. For example, in Surah Naba, we have أَمَّا يَتَسَاءَلُونَ عَنِ النَّبَأِ الْعَظِيمِ. About what are they discussing? Are they conversing? This tasa'ul doesn't mean to ask something very trivial from each other, because tasa'ul is a sort of interaction in terms of asking questions. So it's a conversation, it's a discussion about something important. And for example, كل نفس بما كسبت رهينة إلا أصحاب اليمين في جنات يتساءلون عن المجرمين. One of the great and important discussions of people of the paradise is a conversation about how people have ended in hell. As I mentioned before, it's very strange for them that we were sinners, we have been forgiven, we have come here. Now they converse with each other about how it has happened that some people have gone to hell. So this tasa'ul is conversation about something very, very important. So we wanted them to start a conversation about the whole event so that some realities would become apparent. This tasa'ul initially was amongst themselves, and then with that conversation, which developed gradually, they started to understand and realize what has happened and what God wanted to tell them through this story. Then it, of course, spread wider in the city, and people started to ask, and then in the whole empire, they started to ask, what has happened? How did it happen? How these people came back to life after 300 years? So this tasa'ul was actually the purpose of the whole miracle, this conversation that God wanted to show them something about His power, and of course the realities of يوم البعث. وَكَذَلِكَ بَعَثْنَاهُمْ لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. So I wanted them to start a conversation. Now, a very important thing here is that really all the realities of this creation that we are in would transpire for us, would reveal itself to us through sort of conversation, through understanding, asking each other. This tasa'ul in the life of human being is very important, and that is why it's mentioned here as the purpose of their arising them from the sleepy sort of situation that they had. لِيَتَسَاءَلُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. Now, the beginning of this tasa'ul was this. قال قائل منهم. The first thing that they asked, كم لبثتم? How long have you stayed here? Apparently, when they woke up, they were very dizzy. Suddenly, they, of course, after 300 years of sleep, when you wake up, you should be very dizzy, of course. They were very dizzy, and then they became concerned. How long have you stayed here? What happened? Are the soldiers outside or not outside? So they started to ask each other, كم لبثتم? Now, the only thing that they could, they came to their mind was that our sleep was very long. We probably have slept for the whole day. This was the length of the sleep for them. We probably have slept for the whole day or part of the day. Now, part of the day, it was because when they went to sleep, probably maybe it was in the morning, and then they woke up in the afternoon because they thought that they had slept so long. It couldn't be just from morning to afternoon. So some of them said, we slept from morning to the afternoon. Others said, no, this should have been longer. We feel that we have slept longer than a morning to the afternoon. So some of them say one day we have slept, day and night, of course, and we have come to the next day, and others say part of the day. And it was important for them because they were on run. They wanted to escape. They wanted to know how long they had stayed there. It was important for them, not knowing that the whole plan has changed. 300 years has passed. They didn't know anything about it. So the only important thing for them was whether they had slept one full day and part and some extra hours, or some hours, part of the day. قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم. Some of them said, your Lord knows better how long you have stayed. Now, why this was important, as I said, it seems a very trivial sort of conversation. How long did we sleep? It was important for them because they wanted to plan their escape. They wanted to plan the route of their escape. Apparently, they had just sought refuge into that cave so that from there they could go outside the reach of the ruler and the emperor, go outside the Roman territories. So it was important for them. However, a group of them probably sensed something. These 7 people, one of them was, of course, that's a shepherd with the dog. The 6 who came from the palace, apparently they were of different status in their faith, in their iman. And therefore, one group of them just talked about a day or part of the day. The other group who were higher in Tawheed, in their feelings of things, they thought that no, this should be something very strange. It couldn't be like that. So they said, قَالُوا رَبُّكُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِمَا لَبِثْتُمْ. Your Lord knows better. So how could we find out how long have we stayed? First of all, you are very hungry. And secondly, we want to find out how long have we been here, what has happened outside. So the first thing that came to their mind was that فَابْعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِوَرَقِكُمْ هَذِهِ إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ. Someone should go to the city. And for 2 purposes. One, finding out that what has happened during our stay here. We don't know how long we have slept, first of all, and what has happened outside. And secondly, as soon as they woke up, they felt very hungry. Of course, 300 years of sleep would make you very hungry. They felt very hungry. The first thing was, of course, get some food. So, and they had some money, of course, with them. Send someone with this money of yours here, and they have to look for pure food. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا. The sentence here tells us that these people were very much concerned about the food that they took even before they coming to the palace. They coming to the cave, escaping from the palace, coming to the cave. Of course, when they were in the palace, they had to eat from the food which they were offered. They had to just behave the same way as other people behaved. But apparently in their home, they were very cautious about the food they ate. Now, this purity of the food, the exegetes have talked in 2 ways about it. One is purity in terms of slaughter, in terms of how the animals were killed. Were they offered to the gods of Pantheon, or they were not offered to gods? They were slaughtered in an ordinary way. This is a possibility, of course, because in all religions, meat offered to idols was forgiven for the people or followers of religions to eat. So here they may have wanted to not eat the food which was offered to the idols, the meat. This is one possibility which some exegetes have mentioned. However, it is quite far from reality because they couldn't have cooked meat there in that cave. They wanted just some bread and something to eat with that bread, probably cheese or something like that. So it was not about the slaughter and the way the sheep or goat was slaughtered. It was about the food which was not usurped by the ruler, the food which was not somehow extracted out of oppression from people. This is probably a better possibility, which some other exegetes like Mujahid have mentioned. Mujahid says, كان ملكهم ظالما فقولهم أزكى طعاما يريدون أيها أبعد عن الغصب. So, which food is not somehow polluted by the usurpation and oppression of the palace? So we buy from that, and we don't eat from a food which is not halal for us. These people, of course, were Christians. Initially, they were idolaters. Then they converted to Christianity. The story is about 2,000 years old. And you see that even at that time, and of course, all through the history, eating food which is not halal, which is somehow usurped from others by force, has always had a very bad effect on spirituality, on the soul. And these people, who have reached this state of spirituality, this station with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, should have had caution about what they ate, where the food came from, where the money came from. These sort of cautions and scruples that they had was important in their, of course, development, spiritual development. Usually the Quran mentions only very important aspects of a story. And this conversation, they should have had long conversation between themselves. However, those aspects, those parts of conversation were used were mentioned which are important. And this فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا, it should have been very important in the eyes of Allah that He has mentioned it as part of what they said amongst themselves. So one of their concerns was they didn't want to eat food which was not halal, which was taken out of oppression. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى طَعَامًا فَلْيَأْتِكُمْ بِرِزْقٍ مِّنْ, then bring a rizq from that food for us. وَلْيَتَلَطَّفْ, and be careful. Talattuf may have many different meanings: to be discreet, to be cautious, to behave gently, to be quite attentive and being on guard. So it means that while you are going, one of you is going to the city to bring the food or to buy something, you should be careful that do not behave in a way to raise suspicion so that people may come after you, and then bring some food for us. One question may come to mind, and that is why, despite the great danger, they actually risked to somehow give away the information about their place by going to the city. Why they did that? They could have stayed there just for some other while until things would have settled down. The reason may be twofold. One is, after 300 years of waking up, probably they felt that if they don't eat something, they would die. So they wanted to send someone to get food for them. The second was information. They needed information. They needed to know that how long they had stayed there, what has happened outside, what should be their next move. Is there anyone who could help them in their escape from the imperial forces? So these were the drives which, despite the great risk, they wanted to send someone to the city to get them some food and get some information. Not knowing, of course, the plan of Allah was something different. The plan was that someone should go to the city to realize what has happened, to understand the situation, and for the conversation, that tasa'ul, to continue amongst them, that now what has happened, things have completely changed. So these are the reasons for which they risk their lives to send someone to the city. وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا, no one should know about you. Why? إِنَّهُمْ إِنْ يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ يَرْجُمُوكُمْ, if they get hold of you, or if they know about you. Yadharu have both meanings: to know about you, or to prevail over you, to know, to get hold of you. If they find about you, or if they catch you, they will certainly stone you to death. This was the severest kind of punishment that because they were people of the court, because they were prominent nobility, they shouldn't have expected just a small punishment for what they did to support the Christian faith, which was blasphemy, absolute blasphemy in the eyes of the empire. So the least thing they would do to you is, of course, yarjumukum, they stone you to death, or أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم, or the other possibility is that the king would put you through an ordeal so that you confess that you were wrong, so that you tell to the people who are now somehow been impressed by your move, to tell them that you were wrong, you want to repent, you ask forgiveness, and offer sacrifice to the idols. أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم. Now, if you go back to that, religion of your fathers again, لن تفلحوا إذن أبدا. You will never be saved. You will never be prosperous after that. Now, two things here should be mentioned. One is about taqiyya of these people. These people were living with faith for some while. Of course, it wasn't a sudden sort of move for them to convert to Christianity in the court, rising up and saying that we do not worship the idols of Rome. They had converted for some while, and they were continuing showing the old faith, offering sacrifice to the idols, attending all ceremonies, which were, of course, compulsory for the nobility to attend. All these things, as we have in traditions, that they used to dress like idolaters, they used to behave like idolaters, they used to offer sacrifice to idols like idolaters. They did all these things. However, they were concealing their faith. So they were in a state of taqiyya. Now, is taqiyya permissible or not permissible? This, of course, usually when people discuss these verses, they come to this question of, is it permissible for us to conceal our faith if the situation forces us to do that? Now, we have certain traditions directly related to Ashab al-Kahf about their taqiyya, their dissimulation, so to speak, showing something else than was in their heart. Here we have one tradition from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. A mention of Ashab al-Kahf was made in the presence of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and the Imam said, لَوْ كَلَّفَكُمْ قَوْمُكُمْ مَا كَلَّفَهُمْ قَوْمُهُمْ. What will you do if your people force you to something that their people forced them? The sentence is actually alluding to the fact that they were under great pressure. So what would you do if your people force you? And by your people means those who do not believe in Walaya, those who are against Ahlul Bayt. And we know at that time Nawasib were all around Banu Umayyah. They were very much against Ahlul Bayt. They were Nawasib. Anyone showing the slightest inclination, slightest connection to Ahlul Bayt was either killed or was punished severely, tortured. So he says, if that happens, what will you do? فَقِيلَ لَهُ وَمَا كَلَّفَهُمْ قَوْمُهُمْ. What were they forced to do? قَالَ كَلَّفُوهُمُ الشِّرْكَ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ. They forced them to shirk, to offer sacrifice to idols, to bow before the idols, to pray before the idols. This is what they were forced to do. كَلَّفُوهُمُ الشِّرْكَ بِاللَّهِ الْعَظِيمِ فَأَظْهَرُوا لَهُمُ الشِّرْكَ. And they gave them what they wanted. They showed shirk. Of course, they did whatever they had to do. وَأَسَرُّوا الْإِيمَانِ حَتَّى جَاءَهُمُ الْفَرَجِ. So they did all these things. They kept the faith secret until the help came. And the help was, of course, when they escaped and went to the cave. So this is one hadith about these people. They were showing this sort of attire and appearance of shirk while they were mu'minun in their heart. Again, there is another hadith from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. These traditions are mentioned because the Shia at that time were doing great taqiyya. However, some of the Shia were against this. They were saying, if we believe in something, we have to say it, no matter what happens. We are killed. At the end of the day, we are killed, no matter what happens. We have to reveal our faith. We have to say what we believe about Ahlul Bayt, what we believe about others. Aimma alayhimus salam used to advise them that this is not the wise thing to do, that you reveal what you believe in. The consequence will be that all of you will be killed. So what? Why you should want to do that? So that's why, for example, we have in certain traditions from Aimma alayhim salam, like for example Imam al-Baqir, at-taqiyya to dini wa dina abai, as against those Shias who were against taqiyya, who were saying we have to, especially the Zaydis were so hot in their attitude, for example, with regards to Banu Umayyah and the way they had to behave. So they said, taqiyya is my faith and the faith of my fathers, meaning that we have to protect this faith by any means that we can. So here, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, ما بلغت تقية أحد ما بلغت تقية أصحاب الكهف. You think that you are doing great thing by concealing, for example, your mahabba for Ali ibn Abi Talib and your followership for Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because as soon as they revealed it, they were killed. So you think you are doing a great thing, but your taqiyya never can reach the taqiyya of Ashab al-Kahf. كانوا لا يشدون الزنانير ويشهدون الأعياد وأعطاهم الله أجرهم مرتين. They were dressing like the idolaters, despite their faith in God. They were taking part in all celebrations before the idols. And for that, God gave them 2 rewards rather than 1. And in other hadiths, we have 1 reward for having faith, the other reward for concealing their faith. And just looking at this story, we realize why. I mean, had they just revealed their faith initially and they were killed, they were forgotten. That's all. Many people were martyred during the early Christianity. They were killed because they were faithful and they talked about their faith. However, by concealing their faith and then revealing it at an opportune moment, they became perpetual in history by the mention that which is made of them in the Quran and all these things. So you see, their taqiyya was very good. Just like the taqiyya of Shia at the beginning, at the time of Banu Umayyah. If they didn't make taqiyya, we didn't have Shia faith now. If they didn't have that sort of caution, if they weren't cautious about their own lives and preserving their books, preserving their tradition, preserving the A'imma alayhimus salam through that taqiyya, of course we didn't have Shia faith now. Now some people may say that it is somehow abominable to believe in something and not saying it. Well, it depends on the situation, of course. Taqiyya is not lying. Taqiyya is just a precaution that you take for a higher purpose. And sometimes when we discuss, for example, with our Sunni friends, some of the very hot-minded Sunni scholars say, whatever these Shia say is lie, they do taqiyya. No, taqiyya is not lying. Taqiyya is in dire situation of death and life. Of course, you have to preserve yourself. We don't have that situation now, of course. We are not afraid of dying now if we reveal our faith, and that's why we reveal our faith, we talk about our faith. However, some say that even now, you do not talk about whatever you believe in. You just lie and you pretend to believe in certain things that other Muslims believe. Well, this is an accusation, of course. This no one would accept. And taqiyya is a rational thing. It is commended in the Quran. Certain people are commended in the Quran for performing taqiyya. One of them, Ashabul Kahf, of course, not explicitly, but explicitly about Mu'min al Fir'aun. وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ مِنْ آلِ فِرْعَوْنَ يَكْتُمُ إِيمَانَهُ. among Al Fir'aun, there was a man who was believer. He was cousin of Fir'aun, according to traditions. He was cousin of Fir'aun. He believed in Musa, but he was concealing his faith for certain purpose, of course. Taqiyya is not concealing faith for the because because someone is afraid of death, because someone doesn't want just to waste their lives. They don't want just to give up the life to silly people who don't understand anything. This mu'min ala Fir'aun, as the Quran quotes a long conversation between him and his people, and quotes sentences of wisdom from him as if he was a prophet. But the whole point about him is that he was concealing his faith to protect Musa from being hurt by Pharaoh, for example. Well, this was a very, very high purpose. This was a very commendable purpose for him to conceal his faith. Like Abu Talib, we believe that Abu Talib was concealing his faith to protect the Prophet, peace be upon him. Now, if we are simpleton and just say, no, if he believed, he should have mentioned it, he should have stated it, well, for what purpose? To leave the Prophet without any protection at that hard time. Of course, it was not wise. So Abu Talib is like Mu'min al Fir'aun. Abu Talib is going to be rewarded twice, just like Hadith mentions about Ashab al-Kahf, that they were rewarded twice for keeping the faith secret and showing shirk to others. Another Hadith from Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, Ashab al-Kahf, إن أصحاب الكهف كانوا أسروا الإيمان وأظهروا الكفر. They were keeping their faith secret, concealing their faith, and they were showing kufr to others. وكانوا. Now this is very interesting, and this shows about the rationale of the whole situation. وكانوا على إجهار الكفر أعظم أجرا منهم على الإصرار بالإيمان. In showing kufr, they are going to be rewarded more than in having faith in secret. So their action, which was the taqiyya, showing what the people wanted to see from them, this had a sort of double reward than the faith itself, because it's actually very difficult, isn't it? If you believe in something, but you have to keep quiet about it, and you have to show exactly the opposite. And another hadith, إن مثل أبي طالب مثل أصحاب الكهف. The example of Abu Talib is like the example of Ashab al-Kahf. أسروا الإيمان وأظهروا الشرك. They were keeping faith secret and they were showing shirk to others, bowing before the idols. فآتاهم الله أجرهم مرتين. Now, if that is the case, now the other question comes up. If that is the case, why they were so afraid to be caught and to go back to the previous state that they had? Because they were living under taqiyya for a long time. Now they have revealed their faith and they have escaped. And now they say, إِنَّهُمْ إِنْ يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ يَرْجُمُوكُمْ. One of the two things. Either you have to confess to their faith, or they will stone you to death. One of them. Now, had they again confessed to shirk without having it in their hearts? We know that the Quran also talks about this in a couple of verses. For example, in the case of Ammar ibn Yasir, who uttered kalimatul kufr when they forced him, when they killed his parents, and they wanted to kill him unless he rejects Allah, he rejects Prophet, and say, I believe in the idols. And he said it. And they released him. Then he came to the Prophet with a very distraught situation, very upset of himself, what he did. Out of fear of death, he said something that they wanted. So he came to the Prophet, said, I am perished now. And then this verse was revealed according to the Exodus with regards to him. Man kafara billahi min ba'd imanih. Of course, whoever has faith and then turns to kufr, بعد إيمانه كفر بالله من بعد إيمانه. There is one sort of interjection, a sentence there, but the end says فَعَلَيْهِمْ غَضَبٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. There's the wrath of God on them. However, there is an exception, which comes in the middle. مَنْ كَفَرَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ إِيمَانِهِ إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ وَقَلْبُهُ مُطْمَئِنٌ بِالْإِيمَانِ. Except, of course, I am excluding those who are compelled to do it, while their heart is sure of their faith. وَلَكِنْ مَنْ شَرَحَ بِالْكُفْرِ صَدْرًا. I'm talking about someone who wholeheartedly opens his heart to kufr after faith. Then, of course, there's wrath. There's wrath of God upon them. So what here is mentioned in the Quran is that anyone who's compelled to kufr, whether he's afraid of his life or whatever, then if they utter the kalimatul kufr, it's not something that God is going to punish them. لا يتخذ المؤمن in Surah Al-Imran لا يتخذ المؤمنون الكافرين أولياء من دون المؤمن. You shouldn't take allies. You shouldn't take side with kafirin. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَلَيْسَ مِنَ اللَّهِ فِي شَيْءٍ. Whoever does that has nothing to do, Allah has nothing to do with him. It means the relationship between him and God is cut. Although he says, I'm a believer, but if he allies with the kuffar who are fighting against Muslims, he is not there. The connection between him as God and God is broken. إِلَّا أَن تَتَّقُوا مِنْهُمْ تُقَاتٍ. Unless if you are afraid of them. Then you can have that taqiyya, that caution. Now, these are mentioned here. So there is no question in permissibility of someone who's under such a pressure to show kufr. And the Quran talks about it, the Hadith talks about it. So why they were concerned? Because if they were caught, they would have either been killed, and if they didn't want to be killed, they would have gone back to the same state of taqiyya. أَوْ يُعِيدُكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ. They return you back to their faith. وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. What was the concern? Why couldn't they go to their initial state? Now, the reason is that now, first of all, them going back to kufr, or showing kufr, the going back to taqiyya, would have a great impact on the Christian community of the time. This was not something easy, of course. It would have a great impact on the whole Christian movement in the whole empire. That these people, look, they became Christian. Now they have come back to our own faith. The second is that now, of course, they were not left alone to do their prayers in their homes. Of course, they were free in their homes. They could do whatever they wanted. But in public, they showed the general faith of the people. Now they were not going to be left like that. They would have been scrutinized to see that they really, really are going back to that faith of their fathers and their community, and therefore it was not possible for them to go back now, and that's why they have mentioned that you will not be saved, you will not achieve salvation after that if you go back to the faith that you were pretending to have before. And then after this conversation, of course, we should know what had happened. They came to the city, the man came to the city, wanted to buy some bread or something, and they saw the coin, which belonged to 300 years ago. They thought that they had found a treasure, and they wanted to share the treasure, so they reported, and because they didn't have any treasure, they reported them to the officers, and they were caught. وَكَذَلِكَ أَعْثَرْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ. And in this way, we made people to become aware of them. Inshallah, we'll discuss this in our next session. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَآلِهِ الطَّاهِرِينَ.
Thank you very much, Shaykh. We have some time for questions. Do we have any questions? Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh.
Alaykum salam.
Thank you very much. It was quite simple today. Just one little thing before I move on to the main point. It says, your Lord will, when they come out of the cave, they were discussing. And where is it now? It says, part of the day, قالوا لبسنا يوما قالوا ربكم أعلم. So is this alluding to the some people who had more faith than others? Because it doesn't fit in, Rabbukum. So they're talking to each other.
Yes.
And they're saying, your Lord will.
Yes.
It's just the tense might seem wrong to me. That's
No. It's very common. For example, the Quran also, when it talks to the Prophet, says Rabbuka. Or when it talks to us, says Rabbukum. And here, because their Lord was one, of course, they did not believe in any other Lord, it was closer sort of to the heart, saying that the one who's providing for you, the one who's cherishing you, Rabbukum. Here, Rabbukum means Rabbuna, actually, but it would be more effective to say Rabbukum, because they were discussing, and they said, like, your God knows better. Yeah, this is how it comes.
So we would say that amongst friends. They say, your Lord is the same as my Lord.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not like some people were believers and some were not.
No. All of them were believers.
Oh, okay. So that's a simple one. Now we want to the main point. The taqiyya, as we discuss in taqiyya, it is about kufr and iman. Mm-hmm. Yes? But these days we face a little bit of a different dilemma in terms of taqiyya, because taqiyya normally means in the Ahl Sunnah, which are the main majority of Muslims. For example, I was in last week we were in Umrah, so the question of prayers is always there. There were Shias holding prayers in Mecca in the hotel room. Now, I didn't want to go into the intricacies, but at the same time as there is an Ahl Sunnah Jamaat going on in the Kaaba itself, the position is that from the hotel we could actually see the Kaaba. We could see some part of the black cloth. So to me it seemed like I am there in the vicinity of the Kaaba. I might be going wrong with the technical details. Maybe there is a limit with the Marajah to say whether it's 100 yards or a mile or whatever it is. But it just seemed wrong for people to have a Jamaat namaz for the Shias separate, while the noise of the voice of the Jamaat going on, the main Jamaat, is actually in the loudspeaker of the hotel. So it just seemed wrong. Now, could you perhaps elaborate on not whether that was right or wrong, but whether taqiyya could have applied in such a circumstance?
In what way? I mean, could have applied in the way that people go and join? Or
exactly. So maybe the Shias should have joined the namaz. Because
well, now all the Marajah actually advise us to go and join. And even if, you see, the unity or to be together is so important. This, of course, not about Iman and Kufr. It's about two groups of people, some of whom are not tolerant. Like, for example, our Sunni brothers are not very much tolerant towards us. For example, if you use mohr, okay? Or if we pray the way we want to pray, sometimes. If they are not tolerant, now, the advice of A'imma alayhi salam is that, okay, you have to buy that intolerance upon you, go and join them to be united, and if that means you leave certain aspects of the correct way of the sunnah that you think is the correct way of the sunnah, if that means you have to leave it, it doesn't matter. Let it be so. Leave it. For example, don't use mohr there. Don't use turba there. Because to be together is more important. Now, whether this is called taqiyya or not, it may mean taqiyya in the sense that they call it mudarat, at-taqiyya al-mudaratiyya. It means that you want to be with others, you want to have tolerance, and if other people don't show tolerance, you show tolerance. You leave some parts of what you think is right, but be together. And therefore, yes, I mean, in one sense you can say taqiyya applies here. But this taqiyya is not lying about anything, you see. You're just concealing something. You not reveal it or you not practice it. I mean, if they ask, if I go and join a prayer of Ahlus Sunnah without turba, if they ask me, I say no. In my opinion, the correct way is to use a turba. However, because I want to be with you and you are not tolerating me using the turba, so I pray like you. So it is quite commendable. All our ulama now say that you have to do it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have any further questions?
Alaykum salam.
Regarding the taqiyya of Abu Talib, I know he protected Prophet Rasulullah right up till the end, took them to the valley for 2 years. But is it true, many people believe that he did not accept Islam up till the at the end? How, please, can you just...
In our view, no. That's absolutely wrong. And one of the reasons that this allegation is made against him, despite all the literature which has been left from Abu Talib behind. I mean, he has lots of poetries commending the Prophet, commending his message. So one of the reasons they say that at the time of Banu Umayyah, especially because they were very much against Ali ibn Abi Talib, they wanted to discredit him by saying that his father was a kafir, was not a mu'min, was not a believer. But the traditions from Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and also the rational analysis of the history tells us that Abu Talib was a firm believer. He concealed his faith for a reason, because if he revealed his faith to the Prophet, he would have been one of his followers, and people would not have listened to him by saying that, no, I am the head of Banu Hashim, for example, and I protect my nephew, not because I am his follower, but because he's my nephew. He had a very firm stance. And therefore, we believe that Abu Talib is going to be rewarded twice. One for his faith, the other for concealing his faith.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. You know, we are told only to fear God and no one else and nothing else. So I know taqiyya, you have to do taqiyya to maintain a certain level of calmness even if it was in a family, like, or if it is in a community. But how do we balance this fear only God?
We do taqiyya for the fear of God, actually. I mean, these people, they did taqiyya for the fear of God because they wanted to perform their duty. It is sometimes some people think that it's not important that you do right thing or wrong thing. You have to tell whatever you believe in, okay? But some people are of a higher level. They think of what is right to do. What is my duty now? Is my duty to, for example, reveal my faith, or my duty is to conceal my faith for the time being? And then at an opportune time and an important time, I reveal it. So that is why the people who have faith and just reveal it and say we only fear God, they will be rewarded for that. But these people will be rewarded twice, isn't it? Because they are duty bound. They know that they have a mission to complete. And for that mission, they keep quiet for a while until the time comes. So they do it for the fear of God, not for anything else.
Mazanko.
Thank you, Shaykh. I'll ask two questions continue, straight away. One is there a particular reason for raising the ashabs after 300 years? Is there some magical reason for that? Not 100 years, not 200, not 400, 500, just 300. And secondly, as we have known that for many years it was propagated that the care was in Syria, and then during our discussion it came out that there's a more stronger possibility of having it in Jordan. So is Jordan sort of promoting that this cave is in Jordan and people are aware of it, or what?
Well, actually, as I said, anywhere in the world a cave is found, people said this is the cave of Ashab al-Kahf, you see. So Syria is a very, very weak possibility. I mean, the one which people go and visit is a very weak possibility. Usually they say it was in Ephesus, in Turkey. And the description of that cave is mentioned, and most of the exegetes also have mentioned that cave in Ephesus, in Turkey. Yes, Jordan is now promoting that cave very much, and they are somehow proud of telling the story that Ashab al-Kahf were here. And this is, as I said, it fits the descriptions mentioned in the Quran very much. The cave in Jordan, more than the cave in Ephesus, which fits the story. So, I mean, it's not important where the cave is, but these are sort of historical investigations that people have made. Allama Tabatabai has actually gone into details about this cave in Jordan and has somehow supported the idea that the cave in Jordan would be possibly the cave which is described in the Quran as the cave of Ashab al-Kahf. Thank you very much.
Yeah. What about this 300 years?
Yeah, 300 years, you know, there should have been reason why at that moment of time they were raised. First of all, they should have been kept asleep until Christianity would have overcome the Kahf. This was one of the things that God wanted to show them. That's how we prevail, how weak people would overcome the strong people, the powerful people. So the time should have passed about 200 years before the Christianity became the faith of the empire. And then another 100 years probably for it to spread among the people, because just by the decision of empire, faith wouldn't spread. By lifting the oppression, by lifting the persecution, by preachers going around and preaching Christianity. So to get some sort of power, to get some sort of hold of the society, it needed some time. So probably this 300 years was for this sort of prevalence to somehow spread in the city, in their city, also in the whole empire, so that they come back and see the power of God. They come back and see that the only veil which prevents people from seeing the control and management of God is time. If we take time out, we see that God is always in control.
Any more questions?
Following to what our brother here said about the praying, you said that all the Mufassirin now said that you can pray with the Ahl Sunnah. But is it praying actually as a Jamaat or Furada? Because some people pray as Furada and then they pray again later on.
You see, it's not important the way we do it. The important thing is that we are recommended to go and join. Ayatollah Sistani says that you have to recite your hamd slowly with yourself, and then you don't need to repeat. I don't think there are many Maharaja who would say that you have to repeat your salat because, for example, certain things they do which we do not regard to be part of the sunnah. Like, for example, they say Ameen, we do not regard this to be part of the sunnah. They tie their hands, we do not regard this to be part of the sunnah. And if we do it, it would invalidate our salat. I mean, in our free time, if we do that when we are not praying with them, it would invalidate our salat because we do not believe these are parts of sunnah. Now, they believe it's parts of sunnah through their chains of transmissions that they have. However, the important thing is that the ulama say it would not invalidate your salat if you pray with them while they are praying the way they see to be the sunnah prayer. And this is, as I said, for the importance of being together, for the importance of unity. And this is not what ulama now say. I mean, we have in traditions of Ayyam alayhi salam that you have to join their jama'ah, you have to pray with them, just to keep together. The only thing, you see, it seems quite rational. For example, Shia and Sunni go together and pray together, each one of them the way they like. I mean, they would like to pray like this. We not liking, they think that this is sunnah. We think that sunnah is to your hands to be free. We think sunnah is to pray on Tawbah. They think sunnah is not pray on Tawbah. The only problem here is intolerance, you see. They are not tolerant of that. And now, of course, the situation is very good. At the time of Ayyam alayhi salam, it was not just intolerance or just swearing or saying you are doing wrong. No. It was capture, prison, torture, killing, you see, it was like that. But despite all that intolerance, we are told that you go and do it the way which would not put you in danger. That's all. Yeah.
The same thing applies when you join into the prayer, because the way we do ours is slightly different.
Yes, that's right. They say despite those differences, despite the fact that we believe that there are some...
No, I meant joining in the middle. Say, for example, they join at the second rakat. Now, the way they do it is slightly different than the way we do it.
Yeah, the same. You do it the same thing.
We do the same as what they do.
No, it's not very much different. Sometimes
it is different because obviously when you join in second rakat, in ours, we said it's our first rakat, and when you have to sit down and do hamd and
in many schools of fiqh in Sunnah is the same thing as well. You see, in many schools of fiqh it's the same thing. However, in some schools, which sometimes they think that they are the only Islam, so to speak, and they want everyone to follow them. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Otherwise, I mean, the differences between the fiqh issue is so widely spread among different schools, Sunni and Shia, that you can find, for example, many schools in Sunnism saying exactly the same thing as that the Shias do. The problem is that intolerance that I mentioned.
Any final question?
Sorry, continuing from that, just to ask, the second surah is normally not a full surah. Does that matter? As
I said, anything which they do, which we regard to be contravening the sunnah of the Prophet, because this unity is very important, we just ignore and join. That's fine, no problem. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Shaykh.
Okay.
So what?
I will not be here next week, so inshallah we'll continue.